Hello, Daryl Jones here, retired annuitant, former deputy fire marshal with Alameda County Fire. Today we're going to be looking at mercantile inspections. We're going to start exterior, doing that 360 that you're used to doing all the time anyway. Here's an example of what you're going to see on the exterior of a large big box store. Many of the big box stores have multiple exits on the exterior perimeter of the building. That requires them to have fire doors that aren't usually part of their egress pattern until they have an emergency. These fire doors should never be blocked, but in reality, there are times because they aren't used regularly that people don't pay attention to these signs. So for example, around the holiday periods, it's not unusual for the merchandise to exceed the storage capacity on the inside of the store. So they'll arrange to rent for that holiday period these 20 to 40 foot cargo containers that are used to ship product from overseas. If these were in front of your fire door do not block, it would inhibit egress to the exterior. Another example is where they're doing some construction on the interior of the store. They'll have a construction debris container, and it also could be blocking the egress path. Make sure that these are appropriate away from the building and definitely away from the fire doors. On our OS&Y valves, they each need to be identified as to the area they serve. It's important that those signs are there. After your inspection is over, you might want to turn it over so it doesn't get weathered. Although the OS&Y has tamper protection, we generally require a chain and lock, breakaway lock on there. If that's damaged or broken, you can have that as a violation to have them replaced. Also, on your FDC caps, they should be pot metal rather than the plastic. What happens with the plastic is the weather causes them to deteriorate and they fall off, and then it can be debris placed inside the FDC. Although generators are not required for mercantile occupancies, many of them are installing these now to protect their refrigerated and frozen products from damage during a power outage. Generators can be run on diesel, natural gas, or propane. As you see here, they have a propane installation for their generator. Propane requires an annual permit that's evaluated by the fire department each year. All right, on the large mercantile, almost always you're going to find a full fire alarm system. In this case here, the room is marked fire alarm panel. We're going to go inside and look at some of the things that you'd be wanting to see for your inspection. So now we're inside the locked room that contains the fire alarm panel. As you can see, we have system trouble and we have system silence. This will require a fire alarm tech to come out and restore the system to green, which is the way it should be. Full fire alarm systems have what's called the Fire Alarm System Certificate from Underwriters Laboratories. These are dated. They are not necessarily required, but many of the larger corporations require their stores to have these. So now we have a violation of the electrical code. You're supposed to keep clear in front of the panel for 30 inches, and that has not been done here. This is an easy to fix violation. They can probably do it while you're still in the store. So many of the large big box stores are going to have a separate fire sprinkler riser room. You're going to access that using your Knox box key and enter that room. Here we have a 10-inch water supply, fire water supply, necking down to an 8-inch. Many of the big box stores are in a manifold style system. The reason for that, you have a maximum capacity of somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 per system. In the case of a big box store, mercantile like this, the maximum will be a 25,000 area. This store is well over 25,000, so they have 4 separate zones. They also have, for the in-rack, a separate zone for that. We'll see the in-rack in a little while, in-rack sprinklers. This particular fire sprinkler system has 5 different sprinkler types. So you're going to see a certain amount of sprinklers. There's almost 2,000 sprinklers in this system, and so there's going to be a certain amount of them as spares if a sprinkler head goes off. So most mercantile, including even the small 7-Elevens, have propane storage. It's a specific distance away from the entry door, and it's usually stored in consumer quantity containers in a locked cabinet. All right, in most mercantile, you're going to have storage above 12 feet, which is considered high-rise combustible storage. Because of that, they'll have what you call in-rack sprinkler protection. You need to look and make sure the little cages are on the sprinklers in every instance where they're in the racks. Also, for certain high hazard flammables and combustible or flammable gases, they have in-rack protection for that. And it's tighter, it's no more than 4 feet apart. And you want to make sure those cages are also on. All right, so for the overflow product, they have a back storage rack. This back storage rack is densely packed with carpet. So because of that, it also has extra fire sprinkler protection. Material handling equipment is usually electric inside the building and propane or diesel exterior to the building. In this case here, this is electric material handling equipment. You want to make sure that none of the cables are damaged and that it is properly connected to the suitable electric power. Something to keep in mind when you're doing your inspections of big box stores is your back of house storage is going to be very highly dynamic from your fire protection standard. If your sprinkler system isn't up to snuff, look what you have here. We have encapsulated foam, cardboard, tightly packed, dense. So whatever you see that's a violation of that, you want to deal with it while you're with that store. For this style of storage, make sure they have the metal racking rather than the wood slats. With the metal racking, it allows the water to penetrate and get down to this lower layer and put the fire or control the fire till you can get here. In many big box stores, you're going to have a main electrical room, which has your main point of entry for your power, and there might be some auxiliary electrical rooms elsewhere. So this is the main electrical room. You got your main point of entry for your electrical. And again, what are we looking for as far as storage? Combustible storage. All right, today we're going to be continuing to look at our mercantile occupancies. In this case, we're going to look at a manifold fire sprinkler system for a commercial occupancy. We're going to be looking at the calc plates. We're going to look at the spare sprinkler heads. You're going to get an opportunity to see the dry pendants that are used in your freezer and your refrigerated occupancies. Now, one of the things we had to always remember is to check the spare sprinkler cabinets. In a large mercantile occupancy, you may have between 4 and 7 different types of sprinkler heads. Each of them is going to have a spare sprinkler cabinet of this style. Inside the spare sprinkler cabinet, you're going to have a wrench. You're going to have the various types of sprinklers that are used for that particular system. When you have a large sprinkler system, there will also be areas where they have a suspended ceiling. In the suspended ceiling, to cover up the hole where the sprinkler comes through, you'll have what's called an escutcheon. They'll have various colors and types of these that will be near the spare sprinkler cabinets. Now with the hydraulic calc plates, each riser will usually have one. Sometimes they place all of them onto one riser, but they each will talk about a different section of the system that you're inspecting. So when you have refrigerated or freezer occupancies, there's going to be a specialty type of head. This box contains those. It has a specialized wrench, along with the standard wrench. These are a couple of $100s each. So they're going to be in a box. In this particular case here, you can see the barrel of this dry pendant, and then you can see the sprinkler head that would be inside of it. With the dry pendant sprinkler heads, we saw the one that looks like this. This is the box that they usually come in. And remember we talked about escutcheons? Here's another style of escutcheon that's white. So now we're looking at a manifold fire sprinkler system that's found in many mercantile occupancies. We're going to be looking at various encapsulated pallet product so that you could see where it might be blocked by the sprinkler system, blocking the sprinkler system. In this particular case here, you have rugs that are set up and they're sufficiently below the sprinkler system for it to operate effectively. Now we have some encapsulated pallet product that's on the upper shelf. One of the things as you're doing your engine company inspections is to make sure that it's not obstructing the sprinkler discharge. In this particular case, this is appropriately distant, which is a minimum of 18 inches from the sprinkler head above it. Every large mercantile occupancy has a maximum of 250 feet egress travel. At the end of that egress travel, you're going to have some type of emergency doors. As you can see here, these are panic doors. These are 6-0 doors. They're protected by theft deterrent devices. The theft deterrent devices can be turned off by management with the key, and that allows you to check the doors to make sure they open to their full opening 90-degree position. Here is what a standard aisle will look like in your mercantile. This particular occupancy does a very good job of not storing outside their maximum aisle width, which is 8 feet. Here's an example of an end cap that's obstructing the aisle width that's required for high pallet storage. Many mercantile occupancies have rotisserie ovens. These rotisserie ovens are protected by a type 1 hood above them and sprinkler. Notice where the sprinkler is located away from that. You also have a responsibility to have a type K extinguisher near the rotisserie for the liquid that is on the rotisserie in case it does flame up. This is an example of a mercantile sprinkler head obstruction. This is common in mercantile occupancies. So frequently in your mercantile big box stores, they're going to have what's called end caps. In this particular case here, the end cap is rugs. So in the mercantile, what you're going to find is things that you might think are a hazard that really aren't. In this particular case, this particular mercantile is selling mattresses. Perfectly fine. Notice they're in a vertical configuration so that water can get between the mattresses. What you're going to find in some mercantile, they're going to put them in a horizontal configuration, which is not appropriate with mattresses, especially when you start stacking them 10 and 12 high. All right, here's an example of a gazebo that's set up to display product, and you notice that it's also obstructing your sprinklers from the combustibles underneath. All right, one of the things that you're used to seeing is the NFPA 704 signs with the diamonds. The blue is for health, the red is for flammability, the yellow is for reactivity, and then the white is for any type of special hazards. In this particular case, what we have is a tire sales area, and they have a 3 for health, obviously from the noxious fumes as the tires will be burning. Okay. With mercantile occupancies, you're going to have a certain amount of batteries that are being stored for sale. They have a certain liquid content that has to meet what the fire code says. So with mercantile, they have a very large liquid content, whereas with other occupancies, we have a smaller liquid content. Generally in mercantile occupancies, you're going to have a certain amount of display tires that are stored on tread, and that allows water to go down between the tires if you have a fire. In back of house or in the warehouse attached to the retail area, you will have tires that will be stored up to 6 feet tall on their sides. Notice also, this is where you would have your batteries that have been returned or for core charge that might be stored here. So now we're going to look at the types of storage systems you see. We've seen rack storage already. In retail, they also have shelf storage. And that shelf storage, once it gets above 8 feet, is part of a permit process. So you want to make sure that it's not meeting the obstruction requirements for your sprinkler system. Also in mercantile occupancies, we have tire storage that may be on 2 tiers. You may have an upper and a lower tier, and they still may be meeting the 6-foot height requirement, but in some cases they may get a little overzealous and go higher. So this is something we want to maintain fire code compliance with when we're doing our inspections. So thank you for being able to spend a little time looking at this video. I'm sure it's been useful to you. If you have further questions, please contact your battalion chief or fire prevention.